First off, what we're proposing is removing the cap and allowing for the full tax deduction of student loan interest. It's an issue that obviously whether or not someone went to school now, or maybe they went in the past when tuition was going up far above, I should say, where the freeze was at, or maybe they went out of state or they went to a private college or university. Certain student loan interest is an area of interest to college students. We lift that cap to $2,500 and allow for the full deduction of the interest on the state income tax.
So the cap on interest payments can be very helpful. If someone has borrowed a significant amount of money and is paying that off, that will definitely help them, having gone out of school now, being able to deduct that interest from their tax bill. And that's fantastic. We do want to help people who have already graduated. As it pertains to us here, what it allows us to do is use this as an educational opportunity to show people, yes, you can deduct this interest from a later tax bill, but what we try and do is to try to even avoid that scenario, to make it so that the students see this option is available to you, but let's look at some other skills that we can take, knowing that this option is available. What other options are there? So hopefully this will start a dialogue within the UW system of, we have this loan repayment option, we have this deduction, but what can we do to even avoid that situation in the first place? And I think that's going to be the most critical piece going forward in this conversation.
In addition, we know one of the things we have found consistently is that if students are able to graduate, whether they're in a 2-year or 4-year program, the default rate goes down dramatically for obvious reasons. If someone gets an education, they get a degree, be it a 2 or 4-year, they're more likely to enter the workforce and be able to make payments on student loan debt. And so one of the things we do, patterned after the Great Lakes Higher Education Program, is to add additional money, work with members of the legislature to help with emergency grants, particularly in our technical colleges and our UW colleges, making sure that if someone runs into, say, something like a medical emergency, one of the statistics have shown us in the past that oftentimes they're not able to continue on through that semester, and typically that either causes the delay or causes them to drop out. We want to make sure they can continue to stay in even if they have an emergency situation like that, so we put additional money into that fund.
I love the idea. We read over that proposal and it's a fantastic idea. Emergencies happen, life happens. If we're driving to school and a tire blows out or our transmission gives out, we don't want that student to give up on their dreams. Very rarely will somebody say, oh, I have a flat tire, let me go slash my other 3 and just give up. No, we change that tire and we keep going. But it's expensive. And so an emergency fund will greatly help students. We'd like to see that fund be increased not just for the technical schools, but also for the UW system schools. The proposal did lay out a bit of discrepancy in those funds. It would be nice to see the UW system proposal get some additional funding there for our students as well.
We also provide a bit of transparency that other states have done successfully. The state of Indiana a few years ago put in place a requirement that at all higher education institutions they provide an annual report that shows what the cost of the education is, as well as what the student loan is at and what the interest rate is at. And what they found is that, in combination with some other things similar to what we're proposing, actually reduced the amount of student loan debt that students took on.
Knowledge is power, and that's what we do here at a university. We educate folks, and it's a great opportunity to involve the parents who, whether or not they're able to provide funding for school, but to educate them on how students are paying for school, what their full options are, what does it look like if you were to take out a subsidized loan versus unsubsidized loan. That's fantastic information that they need to know. And we are more than willing to participate in that conversation and would love to help get that information out. We would look to our legislators to support that initiative all the way through, not just to give it lip service because we do believe in that idea, but to also put their votes and finances behind that idea so that we can keep this going. It's not just enough to provide that information. And that's why offices like It Makes Sense are critical to what we do. If we provide students with financial literacy literature, readings, pamphlets, well, that's great. But just like what we find in the classroom, we can't just hand a student a textbook and expect them to learn. There needs to be a teacher there. And that's where an office like this comes critically into play. We would love to give this information to students. Absolutely, it's wonderful. but we also need to be there to guide them through it and to help them make sense of it. And so what's going to need to happen for this to be truly effective is we are going to need to combine not only an increase of availability to resources, but an increase in the availability of professionals trained within these resources to help make sense of this. And so that's what's going to make the biggest impact in the most profound way, is a combination of increasing those resources, but also increasing our efforts professionally into helping those students understand those resources.
And the final thing that we've announced in terms of legislative packages are setting aside some additional resources, working with the Department of Workforce Development and the UW system to put in place more coordinators to provide more internships. Because the statistics show us not only internships more likely to lead to employment post-graduation, but also particularly for students that come in from places outside of Wisconsin, they're more likely to stay in Wisconsin if they've had an internship, and that leads to employment.
An internship is a very important piece of the college education experience, especially when it serves as a capstone experience, perhaps in the final year of an education. It allows that student to not only get job training, but to take those skills that they've been learning and apply them to a real life experience, which is critical, absolutely. And then that becomes a networking piece, which can then lead to future employment. And especially if it stays within the state of Wisconsin, that's great for the UW reputation, that's great for the state, and it's just a better experience for what we have going.
We know that the vast majority of careers that pay enough to support a family in the state require some sort of education past high school, and we want to make it as affordable as possible.
One of the things we would like to see is an effort to curb this before it were to even happen. If we were to give more funding, if there was a way to make it more affordable to go to college, not through cuts, but through increases in aid, that would be the most effective measure, because then you're able to maintain and improve resources for students on campus, but you're also offsetting that cost because you're increasing the aid available to them. So that's what really we would like to see happen. But with economic realities and things of that nature, may not always be possible, but in a dream scenario, that would be great.